Support everything we do at MWP News by visiting ko-fi.com/MWP News. Every donation helps us stay independent. For breaking entertainment news, reviews, and more, check out MWPnews.com. If you love games, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@MWPNewsGaming for reviews and gameplay. Links for all of this will be in the show notes, as well as links to the other podcasts. Thank you for your continued support. Good morning and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. So, I'm waiting for Josie to see Thunderbolts. But in that time, while we're waiting, I thought I'd give my rankings for Phase 5 of the MCU. And I think the reason for that is I wanted to put something up this week, and I did not watch Freaky Friday like I intended to. So I think what we could do this week is we'll do this, and then next week, if Peter still can't make it, we will do the mid-year top 5. Sometimes it just happens when we just can't line up properly. But either way, Phase 5 is just the movies that go from Quantumania, which is the first movie after, what was that other one called? Wakanda Forever. So Quantumania through Thunderbolts, because the first movie of Phase 6 is Fantastic Four. Now, we're not going to include the TV shows, because when I do this with Josie, we're not going to include the TV shows because she doesn't have the time to watch them all, and I don't want to force her to sit and watch all of that, because we'll be here forever if that's the case. But let's start out with number 6, because this is an easy one. Number 6 is Brave New World. I think the issue with Brave New World is, and the thing is too, as we go through this, you're going to notice that the movies that I respond to more are the ones that are not hatchet jobs, which is what Brave New World is. It is very clearly a movie defined by the studio mandates. It came about as a result of the success of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was an interesting choice considering that the movie feels oddly disconnected from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If the Falcon and the Winter Soldier wasn't as well received as it was when it came out, this movie wouldn't exist. Yet, I think the entire inciting incident around Isaiah coming to the going to the White House to get the story started, that whole thing is weird considering where we left that character off. There's nothing about how that character is that I believe he would accept the invitation to the White House, which is integral to getting this started. He feels like an entirely different character. But that's not the only thing, is that this movie seemed like the entire, reshoot cycle kind of happened during the campaign last year when Trump became the nominee, and then as he was moving towards becoming president and all of that. And it feels like this is a movie that was designed to be about Trump. When you watch it, it very clearly is that, the president turns into a giant rage monster, and that's who Captain America has to fight. He has to fight the president of the United States, turned into a giant rage monster, who turns into a giant rage monster during a press questioning. During a questioning of the press, that's when he decides to, that's when he hulks out, because he can't handle the stress of being asked tough questions. And he lashes out by becoming the Hulk. And that is such a specific thing that I'm like, oh, this was clearly meant to be Trump from the beginning. This is meant to be him. And then it's they're destroying the White House. He's beating the crap out of Captain America with the American flag. Clearly this was designed to be that. And then it's just, as this was getting closer, it's people aren't going to want to see this, let's not do it. And I think that, based on the other movies from the second half of the year this year that have done well, and even the movies from the first half of the year that have done well, I think that picking a side would have done more for them than the milquetoast nonsense that this movie ends up being. And that doesn't even get into some of the other issues with the movie, like, what's Sabra doing there at all? And I get that, again, it's another thing where it's like reshoots ruin that character, because it's like she was clearly meant to be in a much larger role, and then they ended up, removing her from the movie or minimizing her role because they didn't want to deal with that, with the whole Israel committing genocide thing. They didn't want to get involved in that. And on top of that, like, at that point, just like, how much more would it have cost to just call in, what's her name? To just call in Florence Pugh to fill that role? If you need a widow who's going to work with the government, it's like she's already working with Val. Like, I could buy that she would be working here. It's an odd choice. And the entire, like, war over the adamantium is just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's just sheer nonsense. The plot very closely mirrors Captain America: The Winter Soldier, almost beat for beat, but does it less well. And I can't believe that they decided to blame this movie on the on Anthony Mackie being the first non-Chris Evans Captain America. That's just ridiculous. His performance is fine. Like, I don't have a problem with him. It's just weird. It's like, oh, well, people didn't respond because it's not him. It's like, yeah, but we know who the Falcon is, and to have him become Captain America, we know what this is. Like, the biggest movie ever had the passing of the torch to him. So, like, what's that mean? Like, it is what it is. But that's number 6. Number 5, Quantumania, which I think Quantumania gets a bad rep. I think Quantumania is more watchable, and I think now that it's no longer doing the heavy lifting of building the lore for the MCU in the multiverse saga, I think it's a lot better. But it's still not great, because what ends up happening is that now they're no longer doing Kang the Conqueror as the bad guy of Doomsday, or at the time the Kang Dynasty. It's just not good. And I think that, like, this is a movie that exists entirely for one reason. Everything about this movie is here to show value to Disney shareholders, and that's been the case from the beginning when it was announced in 2021. The movie was announced with Kang as the villain, which was a choice, because, like, so much of this movie works better if you don't know who Kang is going into it. But, like, they announced that Kang was the villain before Loki came out, and they announced that Jonathan Majors is playing Kang. So then when Jonathan Majors shows up in as He Who Remains, like, oh, that's like a variant of Kang the Conqueror. And then when this movie starts and we see the variant there, it's like, oh shit, okay, so Kang, like, it's just weird. Had we not known that, I think that would have worked a lot better. The fact this movie has to do so much heavy lifting is just kind of an odd choice. And then on top of that, too, the majority of the movie is shot on the volume. So it's just meant to show, like, look, we can make major movies on this, too, and it'll make money. The issue is, I think the humor didn't resonate with a lot of people. I think on rewatch, a lot of it did for me, and that becomes kind of the saving grace to get you through what is a lot of lore exposition. And I think the humor really salvages it a little bit. Not a lot. It's just because of how much of it is dour. Just dour, like, everything's terrible. We have the Conqueror. The Conqueror is going to come and destroy the world. Like, because it's all of that, and Kang is this formidable threat. The moments of, like, MODOK, the "don't be a dick" moment at the end, like, it got a laugh out of me. Not that, but like him dying and just laying there with Scott and all of them, like him being like, "You were always like a brother to me, Scott." Scott's like, "What?" Like, and like the tiny hand coming out brushing his face and goes, "At least I died an Avenger." And Scott just like, "Sure, okay." Like, that whole thing really, like, that got me. I thought that was funny. There are a few things in this movie that are funny, and I think this movie does have an emotional core that does work, which is Scott and his daughter. It's just, unfortunately, it's not Abby Ryder Fortson anymore. It's Catherine Newton. And I'm not saying Catherine Newton's a bad actress. I do enjoy Catherine Newton. But because it's a different actress, it's a different character almost. Like, they've recast, so it's like, everything we've seen with this person, it's totally different. You have to get into the mindset like, oh, this is replacing the old Cassie, and that's just how you just gotta move on with that. And that's kind of the issue with that. Moving on to the next one, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, which may be a hot take. I rewatched this movie last week in prep for this, and I think I rewatched all the movies except for Thunderbolts last week, let me just put it that way. The issue with this movie that puts it so low for me is I don't like when you're expositing backstory to me of a character who I've known for years, and that's got to be the emotional core of the movie. And a lot of it comes into this, from the beginning, known to be tragic tale of Rocket's friends, Teefs and Layla and all these other people. I think that's kind of the thing that drags it down. That, and, like, the movie is oddly kind of, like, meandering to an extent. And I don't mean, like, they're very focused on the plot, that's not what I mean, but, like, and it plays into the plot, the idea that, like, all these characters in this were very much tied to Thanos. Gamora is Thanos' daughter, Nebula is Thanos' daughter, and Thanos is now dead. Like, when we meet Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, he's like, yeah, Ronan came to my planet, and he killed my wife and my daughter, and then, you know, you have this, you know, this moment of, you know, I don't have to kill Ronan, I have to kill Thanos. And it's like, all of these characters have to kill Thanos, and now Thanos is dead, and the character who killed Thanos is not any of these characters. It's Thor and then Tony Stark. So all these characters now no longer have something to do. So the movie tries to retrofit in the idea that the High Evolutionary has been pulling the strings in the background from the beginning, which I don't really buy. It's kind of like in the new Mission Impossible movie, where it's like, oh yeah, the rabbit's foot that Philip Seymour Hoffman was going after in Mission Impossible 3 was actually was actually the Entity. And it's like, okay, sure, but that makes me think less of the Entity more than it does more of Mission Impossible 3. But that's kind of what it feels like. It's like, oh yeah, he created the Sovereign. He's creating all these races out there. He's doing all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I understand all of that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't get, you know, I wish we had more time to develop this character. And I think had it been from the beginning, like the High Evolutionary is pulling the strings behind the scenes, it would have worked a lot more. And I think tying all these characters to the High Evolutionary would have been more interesting. But instead, we're rounding off this trilogy with this thing that's very specifically about Rocket, and I don't think that really worked as much. The action is great. I love the No Sleep Till Brooklyn sequence. It's fantastic. It's a little. There's one disappointing choice about music that I think is in this movie, and that is you have a character named Layla, and one of the most iconic sequences in movie history is Goodfellas' use of Layla by Eric Clapton. I think it was covered by someone in that movie. As they're discovering all the bodies after the Lufthansa heist. The fact that song wasn't in this movie was a little bit of a disappointment. I do love the soundtrack, though. Like, the opening sequence of Rocket walking around singing to the acoustic version of Creep is great. I love Since You've Been Gone. Love Florence and the Machine. The whole thing is just, like, the soundtrack's great. And I think that, like, the only issue is there's just so many little plot things in this movie that are not great. I think the same thing applies to Quantumania as applies here. It's just we're a little bit more forgiving of it if it was because it's Gunn. The idea that, like, there are jokes in weird places that kind of cut the tension, and it's like it cuts the tension too much, which is a problem. Next up, number 3, The Marvels. I really liked The Marvels when I saw it. I've watched it multiple times since. I still continue to really like it. It's lighthearted. The stakes aren't universe-ending. It's just the story of these 3 women getting along with each other. figuring out how to save the day and how to use their powers together. It's about teamwork, about getting to know each other. And I think everyone leaves this movie a little better off, except for Monica, who we won't see again until until Doomsday. But I really like all of that. I don't remember the villain's name, and I watched this movie last week. She's another Kree, sure. Her motivation is fine. It's just I don't quite know that, I don't think we quite grapple with Captain Marvel as the Annihilator quite as well. It'd be nice if we did, but I don't think we quite deal with that as much as it would be nice to. And then I don't know. It's just, look, you give me Iman Vellani in a movie, I'm gonna see it, because she is just so great about, just the enthusiasm is infectious, and her love of what she's doing is infectious, and it's just, she's great in everything. And then also, who's the other one in this movie? I love the little singer at the end, where it's like, it's not the post-credit. I like the post-credit too, with Kelsey Grammer, but the stinger at the end with Kamala Khan doing the Nick Fury is just so funny with Kate Bishop. That whole thing is just so funny. With Haley Steinfeld coming back, and it's like her trying to recruit her for the Young Avengers. Like, I'm here for this. Let's see the Champions movie. Let's get to that. Number 2, Deadpool and Wolverine. And I think the reason why this is so high is because I think that expectations were lowered because there's a lot of break glass in case of emergency that went into this. Like, we're doing Deadpool 3, we're bringing back Hugh Jackman, and we are, and the movie's called Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, all of that feels like, we need to do something big, and they succeeded. I think that, like, the multiverse cameos work. Like, all of that was kind of fun. And I think that, like, it still profoundly feels like a Deadpool movie, not a Deadpool movie produced by Disney. Which was kind of my concern going in, is that it's like they're going to be pulling punches, and it's like they don't really pull punches. And they do a good job of that. Like, the thing that, like, got me, like, hooked me in and got me immediately from the beginning was not the dance sequence at the very beginning with him doing, what was it, bye bye bye, as he massacres all the TVA people. No, it wasn't that. The thing that got me is that the movie opens with him literally digging up the corpse of Wolverine, where it's like, it's perfect, because it's just perfect. All of the Deadpool corpses are great, and this is just fun. This is just a fun movie all around. At number 1, obviously, Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts should have been called New Avengers from the beginning. You would have thought that Marvel would have learned the lesson that DC had to learn the hard way with the debacle of Birds of Prey. They did partially because the movie's not rated R, but I don't think it ever was intended to be rated R. But the fact that the movie came out, and then I saw it on Thursday night of release week, and the movie ends with the reveal that the movie's actually called The New Avengers. Why did you not just call it The New Avengers from the beginning? And I think that there's a case to be made that they didn't, because they were concerned about, this is like the best time I've ever made getting to work. They were concerned about, like, oh, well, if we call it The New Avengers and they see this team, it's going to turn people off. And I think that is a valid concern, that calling the movie The New Avengers, and especially with the entertainment manosphere being what it is, I think there was a valid concern there. But at the same time, people aren't showing up to a movie called Thunderbolts because who are the Thunderbolts? Like, what does this mean? It means nothing. And I think the thing is, it's like, the reason it worked for me is because, like, I always, like Florence Pugh was someone, as Yelena, that I liked since her introduction as a character. I've liked her since Black Widow. I did not really care for Alexei, and I think that he grew on me in this movie. The same goes for John Walker. who grew on me throughout the movie, and I really had no opinion on Ghost, but she grew on me too. And I think that like that's the real success of this movie, is that it's like all these disparate characters who you care nothing about, they all come together and they all feel kind of more fully formed than they did in their original movies. Now, would I have liked to have seen this threaded better throughout Phase 4 and 5? Yeah, definitely. But I think this movie is solid. And the idea that, like, the bad guy, that they're not going to defeat Sentry by punching him to death. Like, that was the thing that I really liked about this, is that Sentry, it's a movie about dealing with your depression. At its core, that's what this movie is about. And the idea that, like, well, Sentry is going to be, is dealing with this personal issue, this deep psychological problem of his depression, like, that whole thing is so well handled. And I think, too, it's not just him. It's like, that, Yelena is, and maybe this is why I like the movie so much, but, like, Yelena feeling like she's just, stuck in the mud, running in circles or running in place, and just like I don't feel like she almost has like failure to thrive, and like her going through this movie with that was something that I really liked, the way that she that they handled that. And it's one of the things where, like, when we look at the movies that Disney has done in the last few years, it's the ones that, like, we're taking actual mental illness and portraying it in a way that's like, oh, we're going to work with this as a coping mechanism. And I think that that's what this movie profoundly is at the end of the day. It's a coping mechanism for depression. And I think this movie was very well done. And especially since I don't care about most of the characters, I left feeling more positive on all of them. And I want to see all of them come back, which is something that I did not anticipate saying walking into it. It's my least anticipated movie of the year. But on that note, we will wrap up there for today. Those are my Phase 5 rankings. We'll see if they match when Josie sees. I have a feeling it won't. But we will wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.